Hey guys, Board now, back with you for another television review, and on this video I will be talking about His Dark Materials, Season 1, Episode 7. It's called The Fight to the Death. So sorry this is about a week late. There's of course one more episode of this season to come, which airs in the UK tonight. So I will try and have the review out by early tomorrow of the season finale. It has, of course, been recommissioned for a second season, which will focus on the second book in Philip Pullman's dark fantasy series. So this one is sort of a double header, if you like. Again, the main focus is on Lyra, who of course was kidnapped at the end of last week's, or she fell from the sort of hot air balloon. There were these like mythical creatures attacking the balloon, and a big sort of struggle, and Lyra sort of fell from the skies. And I mean, it's one of those cliffhangers endings, but with Lyra being the main protagonist, it's sort of quite obvious then they're not going to kill her off, at least not at this stage. So that was kind of the cliffhanger and where she went and stuff. So this episode divides itself between that and the stuff going on with Elaine and her son, who of course is John's son. So back in on regular, day sort of thing, or regular sort of city in the real world in some ways. But so I'll get to that stuff in a minute. But first of all, Lyra, she ends up at this fortress, and it's the home of the supposed king of the land, who is a bear. And he's the one who's been guarding Lord Asherus. So this is essentially his kingdom, his prison. But we find out over the course of the episode that he is sort of, through power and stuff, and with help from Miss Coulter, he has dethroned Lyric, who is the real sort of king of the kingdom, if you like. So Lyra arrives at this place, and she sort of has to do a bit of politicking to try and get the bear on side, because she's in this prison, and potentially the bear wants to kill her, or at least trap her in this prison. While she's in the prison, she finds out that Lord Astral has been moved from the prison. She hears from this really, sort of paranoid, jittery, like ex-professor, that he's been moved to a laboratory where he can continue his research. But that he kind of says, it's still a prison as such, because he can't really leave there. He must stay there. So they're sort of forcing him to continue the research. So it's an interesting development, because in a way it maybe suggests that he's being given more freedom, but on the other hand, maybe they're trying to control him. Maybe they're happy for him to come up with the research and continue his work as long as they can control it, sort of thing. But it does suggest that maybe what Miss Coulter and what the hierarchy want is being sort of challenged a bit by this other side of things, with this this king of the bear. But yeah, Lyra gets this information from this fellow prisoner who's a professor as well. So again, he's another character who's been in prison because of his work and the threat that it poses to the magisterium. But as I said, Lyra sort of has to do some politicking with the bear, because she has to get him to try and trust her, so that she can obviously escape and try to get to Lord Asrael. And she does that sort of using the device, you know, because he wants to know a question which only she could know if she's legitimately who she's saying she is. Um, and she basically claims that Lyric is her sort of, or then she's Lyric's demon. You know, she claims you can be a human and be a demon to an animal sort of thing, so that she controls him, and all the while she's kind of using Lyric as part of the bargaining type thing. But the bear sort of asks her, you know, who was the first demon I killed, and she comes back with the answer because of the device. But then what sort of happens, and it's sort of moving Lyra into some murky areas here, is because she sort of sets Lyric up where she, as part of her cover, as part of her, you know, politics, she sort of gets him to the kingdom, and there ends up being this big fight between the two bears. And I think part of it is you know, in the hope that Lyric would win anyway, but it's obviously putting him in danger. Um, but basically, we also find out that Miss Coulter has been lying to the bear, about the legitimacy of things, and about her sort of motive and the Magisterian's motives. Um, but we get this big fight between the bears, which is, I guess, is the fight to the death of the title. And I mean, again, you sort of know Lyric is probably going to come out on top because of how important he is to the story, and he's going to be there for the final battle. But it's still a really impressive fight. You know, it looks really convincing considering you've got two sort of like CGI sort of bears. It looks really, really good, really physical back and forth. And at one point, it looks like Lyric's lost and he's sort of gonna die. And again, even though you know he's probably gonna be okay, that stuff is still sold really well. And he ends up coming back. Lyra sort of gives him a pep sort of talk. And in the end, it's like his cunning because he sort of plays like he's done, like he's finished. So he sort of outsmarts the other bear and comes back and ends up winning, and he regains the kingdom. And that sets them on a mission now to go and rescue Lord Asriel, to go to his laboratory. So again, you've had this detour, but then pieces of the puzzle start falling back into place. We see a brief scene with Lee Scarsby, and he's told by Seraphina the witch that he still has she reassures him that Lyra's okay, Lyra's still alive, because he doesn't know any different at this point. But she also reassures Lee, then you know you still have a part to play in the final battle. So that again puts him on the road to that for next week, or this week as it is. And that's the main meaty stuff with Lyra. Now back in regular day, or back on the regular Earth, if you like, outside of the fantasy realm, we get this stuff with Elaine and her son, who of course is John. So of course the agents are still hanging around. They're putting pressure on her. The main guy confronts Elaine at home and kind of, you know, sort of again implies that John is still alive, but says, you know, we know you got letters from him. If you can just show them to us, we can help you get him back. Trying to manipulate the situation. It seems as though the end game is, you know, as a way to get to John, as a way to attack them from that end. But he really uses his weight because he says, you know, I'm a government official, and if I have to, I can get, you know, a subpoena and all this sort of stuff. And Elaine calls him out on it. You know, she doesn't or is it Lorraine? I forget which one. Tell me in the I think it's Lorraine actually, but you'll have to remind me. She calls him out on it and says, sorry, I don't believe you. If you want to, that's the only way you're gonna do it. If you go and get a subpoena. So she calls his bluff. She can see then he's not who he says he is. So they obviously then have to use other measures. So they start ransacking the house when they're not there, looking for the letters. And Will, I think it's Will, the son's name. He, at one point, when Lorraine, tells him what's going on and we might have to move because there's these dangerous guys hanging about, and she explains stuff. Will takes her to stay with his boxing coach, who we saw in a previous episode, to sort of protect her. And then what he does is he goes off and tries to find the letters. I'm not sure why, but I guess maybe because they might be less suspicious of him because they don't know then he's onto them, sort of thing. But then we sort of get this sort of tense little scene where they're in the house and Will's like, trying to be as cautious as possible. He gets to the letters. I know there's one where he hits one of them, uses like a boxing type technique, which of course he's been learning. But yeah, I think there's this idea that maybe Will has sort of power. But yeah, he eventually gets the letters and escapes. So that's kind of the end of that for the time being. Again, I'm not as keen on this plot yet, just because I'm not sure where it's going, and it does seem a little bit contrived and soapy, but it's still early stages. I'm not sure whether we'll get more of it next week, or if next week will just be focused on the main plot. It feels like this is something which could be continued in the next season, in the next book. But I'm not sure. We might get more of it next week. But until I see more, I'm not sure yet whether I'm that into this plot. But we will see where it leads. And of course, I almost forgot. Then the actual end of the episode is that Lyra, they're reunited with Roger, who kind of annoys me, to be honest, but they have it. They reunite. They find the laboratory, Lord Astral's, and they arrive, and it's obvious then they couldn't get James McAvoy for much of this season because he really hasn't been in it very much. After the first episode, that was kind of his main appearance. Besides that, I think he's only appeared in flashbacks or something like that. But they find the laboratory, and he's actually really freaked because he finds out that Lyra knows the truth about him being her father, and he sort of freaks and says, you shouldn't be there here, you shouldn't have come. But then he lays eyes on Roger, and he suddenly lights up and calms down, and it's like, oh, you're here. This is, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he's basically excited to see Roger. There's something, again, going to be something special about Roger, and I think he just says, it's a great pleasure to meet you, or something along those lines. But it's sort of a big moment anyway, and that's kind of the end of the episode again. So gonna sort of make Roger more important, and Miss Coulter again starts manipulating things because she is sort of on the outs at this stage with the Magisterium because of her losing control of the whole Lord Astral's situation. They're unhappy, then he's been moved to to this laboratory. But she keeps her power because she says, you know, she knows him better than anyone, and she can get to him and, you know, convince him and control him. And she's the only one who can do this because she knows him best. So that's kind of that side. So she still retains some power because of her knowing him personally and the influence and the stuff with Lyra. But yeah, another good episode mostly, even though I wasn't so keen on the stuff with Will and that. But we'll see where that leads. I can't really comment too much till I see the payoff. But another good episode. I think it's been a really strong first season of this. So obviously one more episode to go, the finale. It airs in the UK tonight, so I'll try and get my review up promptly. And look out for more TV reviews. Look out for more list videos. I've been doing a few of those recently. And coming soon, I will have my top 20 films of the last decade and my top 20 TV shows of the last decade. So look out for those. But if I don't see you again, have a good Christmas. See you guys again soon. Goodbye.